Okay, that camera is way too high. Let's try that. Come on. I hate this automated camera thing that it has. How is everybody this morning? Okay, that's probably. No, it's not. Stop. Hi, hi, everybody. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Donna Pass Whiskey. Hi, Peter. Hi, Dick. Yeah, this was unexpected because I had a video that I recorded late yesterday, but I didn't have time to edit it because I was out for most of the day and I was kind of tired. There was a whole thing. Middle-aged geek girl, by the way, is still in hospital, but hopefully she's coming out today or tomorrow. We're not sure which one yet. She's got to see the doctors first. So that's happening, and it's kind of put me off my pace. I mean, worrying about people you love puts you off your pace a little bit, but it is what it is. And I've got coffee. I'm going to see her this afternoon, so yeah, all good. Is this coming through, or am I talking to the void? Thanks, Dick. I appreciate that. Yeah, she's doing fine. It's like I said last time, not life-threatening, but it's kind of important she's where she is. But yeah, so the weird thing is too, because I've been off my pace, I haven't watched any movies for like 4 days, and so I'm behind on Art House movie August, and I'm going to catch up once she's out of hospital. I'm going to binge the shit out of Art House movies to catch up because I've got to watch 32 of them this month, 31 of them. Thanks, Ramsar. Yeah, so that's the situation at the moment. Really odd. Hi, Uncle Patrick, too. But I thought I'd do a live stream instead because I often do them on Mondays. And why the hell not? Which means that I've already got the video for Wednesday in the can. I've just got to edit it. And yesterday was 33 degrees in Montreal. David Cooper says, hanging with the grandkids, but popped in to say hi. Thank you. Hi, Franny. Hi, Rams. Thanks for the bump. Hang on. I've got to get the fart gun for the bump. Hi, Tom. Let's see. Fart gun's up here. And because Ramsar did a super chat, there, the fart gun is in action. Yeah, yesterday was kind of good, but kind of not good as well. Because when one of the things Sal said when she was in hospital is she wanted people to look after me. And so hi, Carol. My friend Julia invited me out to breakfast at a place called Project Turkey or Project Turkish. Hi, Patrick. Yeah, which is a really nice little Turkish cafe in Brunswick. And so I drove over to Brunswick, went to the cafe. Fantastic food. The food was just next level good Turkish food and cheap as well. It wasn't expensive. And so I had sucuk and eggs. Joining in with the fart gun here. Franny says, not a euphemism. Yeah, so sucuk and eggs with Turkish bread alongside it. So it was all really, really good food. And then I had a Turkish coffee, and I haven't had Turkish coffee for a while. And if you've had Turkish coffee, you know that Turkish coffee is crazily strong. I mean, I'm talking about Kryptonian strength coffee. And that really set me up for the day well. Caught up with my friend Julia. She was the person that I went to lawn and looked after when she was when she needed a carer. So really good there. Carol says, okay, that's not what I imagined when name. I thought you meant you're feeding turkeys. No, Project Turkey is a good cafe. If anybody's ever in Melbourne, I recommend it because one of the things about breakfast places is you can find any number of good breakfast places, but finding one that's on a budget and isn't going to cost you a mortgage is kind of rare. But this one was really great. I'm going to take Sal there when she's out of hospital. So then, because I was down that part of the world, I decided I was going to go to Melbourne Zoo and record it for the Travel Channel. So I got the Osmo Pocket out. I have a chest mount for it now, so I can just stick the camera there and just walk and talk and gesticulate, and it kind of worked well. And yeah, it's so I went and did that. Let's look. Ramsar says Turkish coffee and baklava gives you lots of energy. Oh, just the Turkish coffee gave me a lot of energy. Friday says my first coffee I enjoyed was the Turkish coffee in Bethlehem. I told people I went to the Holy Land, had a religious experience, and it was coffee. Well, the thing about coffee is coffee actually exists, doesn't it? Dick says the cats okay. I'm sure they're missing their mum. Yeah, they are. The cats are fine. Luna's had a pat. Jill's had a pat. Yeah, looking after the cats. For the first day, they wandered around looking for Sal, and then after that, they just went okay. Peter says, fun fact: Turkish coffee with rose water and no sugar is well worth trying. Yeah, I'll see if we can do that next time we're down at Project Turkish. But yeah, so I did it, and I walked probably about 3 kilometers to the zoo, which was my mistake because Melbourne Zoo isn't as good as Werribee Zoo near where I live, which is the open range zoo where the animals get a lot of space to play around with. It's almost like a zoological garden. There's lots of gardens. There's a rainforest area. There's a butterfly house where the temperature is always about 30 degrees centigrade and it's really humid. So you're suddenly walking into a sauna, look at the butterflies. And it was rammed with people. It was crazily busy and got busier as I was leaving about 11:30 in the morning. So I made the mistake of going to a zoo on a Sunday when it was sunny and warm. And you'll see it in the video. Basically, I did see some things, but most of the time there were people with strollers and 17 children in my way to stop me seeing the zoo. So I'm going to do it again on a weekday when it's quiet. But yeah, that was odd, and I did a lot of steps, which was kind of good. But never go to a zoo on a Sunday is the lesson I learned. Carol says Roxy knows when I'm not well or having a bad day. Mentally keeps you company. Yeah, they do. Cats are very intuitive. Friday says Ramsar weirdly though. I live in a bit of a food desert. We do have a shop that sells fantastic fresh baklava. Yep. Hi Frank, how you doing? Yep. So I haven't got anything planned for this video. It's all just going to be chat and an AMA and all of that kind of stuff. Hey, that looks kind of cool. No, hang on. There we go. It's 2 degrees here. It's 2 degrees centigrade here. It was yesterday as well. When I left to go to the cafe, it was foggy as hell. But it's 2 degrees at the moment, so I've got all the heaters on, and I'm trying to keep warm because I don't deal with the cold very well for a number of reasons. Dean says, no, unexpected. Hope you and middle-aged geek girl and Luna are doing well. Yeah, Luna and Jill and I are doing well. Middle-aged geek girl's in hospital, but she's coming out on Tuesday. And she may even turn up on the live stream if she's awake. She might put it on her phone, but we'll see. Tom says, coffee prices are hitting the ceiling here in Connecticut. Extortion, pure and simple. No, it's probably the tariffs that are messing you around there, Tom. But where was I going? Yeah, coffee prices. I actually got a deal with my coffee because I have a subscription where my coffee roaster sends me a couple of bags of coffee every 2 weeks. And because I've got a subscription, when there was a price bump of about $5, people on subscriptions didn't get charged that because we were loyal customers. And so I've got it at a lower price than everybody else has it. Plus, every now and then they throw an extra bag of coffee into my order just as a thank you for being a subscription buyer of coffee. So I really like that. Carol says, did a couple of classes yesterday, then went to Folkestone. I'm very busy. Did 12,000 steps and my feet are killing me today. Yeah, I did about 10,000, but there were a lot of hills. And yeah, I was feeling it this morning a little bit, but the coffee seems to have soothed it. So I've got 2 videos there that I've got the zoo video and I've got the video I did that was gonna be the video for today. So there's all of that happening, which is good because I'm never ahead on the videos. My videos are always last minute, but this time they're not, and it feels kind of weird. Dean says, if you haven't seen the Naked Gun, no, it comes out on Thursday here. It's been delayed, probably because of Trump, but it will be coming out on Thursday, and I will see it, and I'll do something of a review of it, and I'll check it out at my local probably. Rams, I said, in Istanbul, you'll find so many varieties of baklava. City now is a fantastic new airport, but it's far from the old Constantinople. Okay, cool. I've got a friend who went to Turkey recently. Oh, Turkey, sorry, I've got to say it right. And apparently prices are going up there enormously. Sorry about the cough. And also know that a lot of English people go to Turkey to get turkey teeth. They get their teeth fixed in Turkey and end up with these things that look like mahjong tiles in their mouth. Be nice if I could get my teeth fixed, but it's not a priority for me. Not when there are decent box sets coming up, and I don't have the money to do it anyway. But yeah, I mean, there are 2 things that English people go to Turkey for: teeth and hair transplants, and turkey teeth. And in fact, if you find a YouTube channel called Sans Beanstalk, he's actually got a rap about turkey teeth, which is very, very funny. Friday says, new DVD, I picked up The King and the Mockingbird French animation. Looking forward to watching it with friends. That sounds interesting. Yeah. I've only picked up 2 things lately because I'm being frugal. Carol says, read so many horror stories about botched surgery in Turkey. Yeah. Hi, Evil Pixie 96. Unexpected live stream. Must be tail to go with that. Yeah, the tail is I didn't get my video edited and I'm a bit off at the moment. John Bucker says, luckily some of my favourite pour over coffee is the coffee that I make at home. I use Costco French roast. I used to use Starbucks French roast, but it got too expensive. I like locally roasted too. Yeah, absolutely. My coffee roaster is actually across the border in South Australia in a place called Robe, but they do free postage. So I get my beans every 2 weeks from Mahalia Coffee. Really nice people to deal with. Great coffee. They do their blends very well. They also do single origins, which I don't particularly want, but their European roast, which is good for espresso, is fantastic. And so we use that. Well, I do. Sal uses coffee pods, but finding a decent roaster at a decent price who does free postage, and I've been using them since the pandemic and the lockdowns. So when there were lockdowns, having a coffee roaster that did free postage, so you can get your supplies while everybody was locked down, was a bonus. And Mahalia was the only place I knew that did free postage. Tom says the trailer for the new Naked Gun movie doesn't look promising. Oh, I'm going to go see it. I'm going to enjoy it. Friday says Ghibli founders went to France to learn from the makers of King and the Mockingbird. That sounds like a good animation then. Donna Pass Whiskey said, recently switched to cold brew coffee after a co-worker shared some with me. Great stuff, and I make 3 quarts at a time and have it in the fridge in mason jars. Yeah, I don't mind a cold brew. I'll make it at home as well in the summertime. Carol says, love the smell of proper coffee being made, but unfortunately can't stand the taste. Yeah, I think it's a bit different if you get really good quality coffee, and I'm very fortunate because where I live in Melbourne and this part of Australia, including South Australia, has the best coffee in the world. It's really superb. And when I go into the city, which isn't that often these days, I can really get a great coffee anywhere I go. It's really weird because there are some cafes around where you can get a breakfast and the coffee's shit. And you think in a city where you can get the best coffee in the world and you can get it at a more or less reasonable price, why would you buy bad coffee beans? It's such a false economy. And I never go back to those coffee shops. Dean says, "What's a middle-aged geek girl's favourite shark film? Probably Jaws, but she likes anything. Deep Blue Sea would be the other choice I think she'd have. But she loves a good shark movie and a bad shark movie as well." But yeah, I got my coffee here in a little earthenware cup that Sal got me. I've got this ritual with the coffee that this cup is the one I have to have my first cup of coffee every day, and because it was a present. Tonight can be the start of a brand new channel, Terry Talks Coffee. I couldn't do it anywhere near as well as James Hoffman does it on YouTube. James Hoffman is the goat when it comes to coffee stuff. There are a few other people who do fantastic work. But apart from this live stream, I'm going to stay in my lane. Carol says, shocked at how much people fork out for coffee and other drinks like that. Not a hot drink fan. Only drink tearful if I'm cold, if I'm ill or cold. Yeah, that's a taste thing. It's a preference thing. And coffee prices vary. The coffees I got at Project Turkish were really reasonable, and even the Turkish coffee was like $4 something. But for the most part, I drink my coffee at home because I am at home most of the time. But when I go out, I know which cafes have decent coffee. There's a place called Grindstone nearby where you can also get a really good blat, bacon, lettuce, avocado, and tomato toasted sandwich. I sometimes get that for lunch. And a couple of other places, Notorious down in Werribee, which does really good breakfast and really good coffee. Peter says, is Starbucks a thing in Melbourne? There's a story because literally 200 meters from my house is a Starbucks, but somebody burnt it down and they're rebuilding it slowly. So I don't like Starbucks coffee, I'll be honest with you. I think most, large company American coffees are shit. They burn the beans and it's just horrible. But when the Starbucks was open before somebody turned it into a barbecue, I'd go around there and they had really good toasted sandwiches, or you could get a reasonable Caesar salad for like $7. So if I was in the mood for just walking around the corner and sitting outdoors on the terrace and maybe having an iced coffee and a sandwich, I'd do that. But I wouldn't go there for the coffee because the coffee is notoriously bad. But having said that, I do have a 30-year-old Starbucks stainless steel coffee mug, which is really good because it's one of those insulated wall ones. Peter says, we had Starbucks at Rundle Mall in Adelaide. It lasted less than a year, way overpriced. Carol says, we have Costa Coffee. Dover has 3 of them. I think I had Costa Coffee in 2004 and wasn't impressed by it. Dick says, a burnt down Starbucks is taking roasted coffee to the extreme. It is. And, for sandwiches and snacks, I didn't mind it at all. And they are rebuilding it. It's taking a while. I'm not even sure it's going to be a Starbucks when they finish. It could be something else. But one way or the other, I like having a coffee shop in like 3 or 4 minutes walking distance. And Luna just walked in. I'm not sure whether she's going to make an appearance or not, but she just walked in. And she's being a bit random because it's cold, and neither the cats nor I like the cold. And also, Sal's not here. So everybody in the house is a little bit off kilter. But I'll share the photo I took of Sally in the hospital. Let's have a look here. There we go. There's the proof of life. That's her sitting in the hospital. And she's doing fine. She's on where she needs to be. She's recovering from her medical stuff. Carol says, not many Starbucks. I think the nearest to us is Folkestone or Ashford. Also, the odd Nero coffee. Yeah. One of the things Australia's doing is we're exporting coffee culture, particularly in New York City. You could get decent Australian coffee because a couple of young people, baristas, headed over there and started up coffee shops, and they're crazily popular. And you can get Vegemite toast and avocado on toast and things like that as well. Donna Pass Whiskey is Starbucks for me is not good quality. Those giant corporate places hire skilled roasters and blenders to make something just okay. With mostly cheap beans, top dressed with a small percentage of good quality. Yeah, I mean, if you have Robusta beans, Arabica Robusta, it's not as good a coffee as you do with the other one. Um, the Arabica is much better than Robusta beans. But having said that, you can do okay with Robusta if you are really, really careful in the roast and you source your beans from certain particular places. Hi, Cold Jay, how you doing? I was mentioning the two things I picked up, and I got these for $1 each. And the movies I like, and I did check the database, which I've not always done. Sometimes I'll go into an op shop and pick up things and not realize I've already got them because when you've got 3 or 4,000 movies, they can slip between the cracks. Dick says, do the owners of Starbucks coffee have to pay Glenn Larson for using the name Starbucks? No, because it predates them. If you look at a movie called The Rainmaker with Katharine Hepburn and I think Burt Lancaster, there was a character called Starbuck in that. And also there was a Starbuck in Moby Dick. With all this coffee talk, I'm going through caffeine withdrawal, says Dean. Well, the struggle is real, mate. So anyway, went to an op shop over the other side of town when I was visiting the Outlaws. And I picked up Cape Fear, the original Cape Fear, Gregory Peck, Robert Mitchum, Polly Bergen on DVD and got a good copy of it. This one kind of fell off the physical media track when Scorsese's remake was released on physical media. And it's a little harder to find the original Cape Fear based on the novel by John D. MacDonald. Fantastic film. I'm going to review it on the channel probably next month. Maybe do a compare and contrast with the two of them. But looking forward to rewatching that one. Let's look at the chat. Costa mainly does flavored coffee, says Carol. Used to do strawberry and cream drink like a milkshake, which I love, but they discontinued it. Yeah, I'm not that keen on flavored coffees unless you're putting a little bit of whiskey in it. Donna Pass Whiskey said, done well, some Robusta beans can add body and mouthfeel, but they also put a lot of crema on your straight espresso shot. I don't mind crema. The thing I learned really about crema is when you get a coffee with crema, stir the crema in because all the flavors in the crema, and you stir it in with a little spoon in your espresso, and it will lift it. Renaissance Chamber says Robert Mitchum's greatest performance, Cape Fear. No, Night of the Hunter, but Cape Fear, he is really good in that. Carol says, I joined Richard in finding films in charity shops, came home with 3 network DVDs yesterday for £2. Nice, because network, of course, has discontinued. So anything you can find on network it may well be unreplaceable later on. Dick says, love the original Cape Fear. Director J. Lee Thompson went to college here in Dover. Cool. But yeah, I got Cape Fear. Love the film. Beautiful black and white. I'm going to have to rewatch the Scorsese version, but I'm not as keen on it. Cold of Jay says, I introduced a friend to Night of the Hunter and really wanted her to see Cape Fear now. Absolutely. And Donald Classwood says, there goes Luna. Yeah, Luna will do what she likes. She's a random agent of chaos. The other thing I got is a Shakespeare adaptation that I like. And there are a lot of Shakespeare adaptations. I believe Imprint's doing a box set of Shakespeare. In fact, they've released it with all of the Olivier Shakespeares. I didn't get a copy of it for review. I'm not going to whinge about that. But I did like this one, and I did get a copy of it finally. Much Ado About Nothing with Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson. Denzel Washington's in there. Keanu Reeves is in there as well, and Michael Keaton. I love this adaptation of it. They filmed it in Tuscany, and it's got all sorts of other Shakespearean actors in it, like Brian Blessed. And I like this movie, and I could do this as an art house film. I just remembered I can add this to the art house film I'm doing for August. Cool. Yeah, Keanu isn't good in that. Absolutely, I agree. Ramsar says both versions of Cape Fear are pretty good. Slight edge to 62. I agree. 62 is the goat with that. Boomer Duck says, what a lovely surprise. Hope Sally's okay and I'm good. Sal's on the mend, absolutely. And she should be home by Tuesday, tomorrow. Because Wednesday we've got to go to a niece's birthday and she wants to be out of hospital by then. Lee saw After Hours the other day. Fantastic film. Are there any other films where the city is a character? I can think of Taxi Driver as an example. There are a lot of them. I mean, even the Australian film Goodbye Paradise, Surface Paradise, the place where it's set, is a character in that movie as well. Peter says, got much to do about nothing. I love Brian Blessed. Well done. Yeah. I like this film, and it's a good quality one too. There's no scratches on it or anything. Bare bones to an extent. There's no extras on it. But things like this are coming out on DVD at op shops, and it's good to find them. I actually went into another op shop a couple of days ago whilst I was in hospital, and there was a guy who had all the good stuff piled up to buy. Anyway, you can't have these; they're all mine. And I went, okay, fair enough. And he's got like a stack of Blu-rays that high and a stack of DVDs that high that he's pinched before I got there. Renaissance Jumbo says, huge fan of Throne of Blood's Jumbo version of Macbeth. Yeah, Throne of Blood's great. Love it. Seen it twice. I haven't got a copy of it yet, but I agree. Tom says, speaking of cool 1950s movie, what's my opinion of Kiss Me Deadly? There's nothing like it. I mean, Kiss Me Deadly is film noir mixed with science fiction, mixed with dark horror. It really works. And Ralph Meeker's Mike Hammer is just a bastard. Doug says, After Hours is great. It doesn't happen often, but I found myself completely immersed in a film like experiencing a dream. Yeah. Racing Chambara said, got Magnolia on DVD for 99 pence at Oxfam shop. Probably the best Tom Cruise performance. I think it is. I've got Magnolia on DVD. There's a double disc box set that I picked up of Magnolia, and it's up on the shelf. I really like John C. Reilly in Magnolia as well. I think his character is fantastic in there as well. And of course, Philip Seymour Hoffman. The whole ensemble is just magnificent in Magnolia. Kenneth Branagh's Henry V is worth picking up too. Yeah, I like that one too. I actually saw a making of Branagh's Henry V, where they're doing the battle scenes, in the mud and the blood and all that kind of thing. And they did a reverse camera shot to show the camera crew and things like that. And right behind where they filmed it is a housing estate. So they filmed it on a green space. But right behind where they were filming is a housing estate. And that amused the shit out of me. But yeah, I haven't really picked up much lately. Friday says Henry V is the absolute best. I agree. I love Branagh's Henry V. I think it works incredibly well. And the bit at the start with Derek Jacobi doing "Oh for a Muse of Fire" just works as well. Yeah, and the thing is, it's accessible as well. A lot of people go, "I can't handle Shakespeare. I don't understand the language." You just got to listen, and probably about a minute or two into listening to the dialogue, your brain flips a switch and you can get the gist of it, even though the word uses and sometimes the words are unfamiliar. There's a little switch that flips and you go, yeah, I can understand exactly what they're saying and why they're saying it. And magic happens. Dick says, currently while watching Livestream, have the TV box recording the lineup from 1958 off the telly. Cool. You got a TV box that still records off the telly. That's interesting because we don't watch linear TV anymore. It's really, occasionally I watch it for the news, but the amount of linear TV we watch, and we watch it through the internet, is really minimal these days. Friday says Henry V is the absolute best. Brian says, I just finished watching Richard Lester's Three and Four Musketeers. Haven't seen them in decades. They're marvelous movies. What an incredible cast. Not that keen on it, but I really like the recent French adaptations of the two stories. They kick ass. I actually got those on Blu-ray because they are magnificently shot. Renaissance Young Barrow says, I appreciate Shakespeare more now, not being rammed down my throat at school and could take it on my own terms. I think that's fair. Lee says, funnily enough, I've been on a Shakespeare kick recently. I bought some Arden annotated versions to get the background references, etc. Absolutely. I mean, in 2004, we went to Stratford upon Avon and did the whole Shakespeare thing and loved it. And there was actually a craft market at the RSC. And so we got to see the space, even though we didn't go to see a play or anything. Love that place. Ramsey said, Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in America has great cinematography in New York City. Watch the extended version, which is about 4 hours. Prohibition-era Jewish gangsters. Epic. And Friday says, in Christmas Day speech, probably the best bit of propaganda ever written, and Branagh nails the performance. He does. I mean, the emotions are all there. And the shifts of emotions during the speech are all there with Branagh. Carol says, sadly, most of us were introduced to Shakespeare in secondary school. Listening to him being badly read could put anyone off. Yeah, I agree. Horacio Chambara said, moved away from stream media to Blu-ray and DVD to become more deliberate in my consumption. Still use TV for live news. I think that's the case with a lot of us. We never had an antenna in this place. We've been here for 25 years now. And we never had an antenna on the roof to watch linear TV. So we did have cable at one stage, but we got rid of that when I stopped working for a cable company. And we now watch everything online. Brian, wow, Canadian $10. I'm going to give you the fart gun. That was a good one. As an admirer of film, I remind you today is the 75th anniversary of Sunset Boulevard. It was released on this day in 1950. I hope we can inspire people to watch it today. Yeah, why not? I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. And I'm ready for a chimpanzee funeral. I'm ready to be face down in Gloria Swanson's swimming pool. Though I hope it's heated because it is still bloody cold here. It's still 2 degrees outside, which is chronic. Do you have to pay a license fee in Australia, or is it just us in the UK? No, we don't. We did in the 60s, I remember when I was a kid, there was a license fee for TVs, but they got rid of that when we got a non-conservative government. When Labor came in 1972, they got rid of that kind of bullshit. Alpha says, hello, sorry you're freezing. I'm okay here in the man cave. I've got the heater on. I've got the overhead heater on. I've got my oil heater on as well. Peter says, Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet is great too. Don't bother with Baz's chopped liver version. I don't bother with any of Baz Luhrmann's movies. I just find them obvious and dumbed down. And that for me is a problem. And Alpha says, I'm not cold. Boomer Doug says, I don't watch linear TV either. How many times has it changed? As a kid, I would buy TV Week with my pocket money and highlight the week's programs. Yeah, not many people do these days. Cult of Jay says, you mentioned Moby Dick a while ago, which reminded me of the silent era version of the story where Ahab wins the day. Did I imagine that or not? I don't know. I haven't seen the silent movie version. I did see the Gregory Peck version, and it's got that great speech by Orson Welles at the start of it. I'm not sure it's the greatest movie ever, but Orson Welles, it's making that speech from the pulpit really nails that movie for me. Renaissance Chambara says, my recent film recommendation is The Iron Prefect. Blu-ray extras include an introduction by Alex Cox, who's always great value. Carol says, I wish we could get rid of the license fee here. The BBC is such a waste of space now. I think the BBC's got right-wing politicised, and that's the problem. When your national broadcaster gets politicized, that's a real problem. And we had some of those issues with the ABC here when we had a Conservative government 3 years ago, and it's been called out as well. And there was also a big thing with a journalist called Antoinette Lattouf, who posted some factual information from the United Nations about Gaza, and they sacked her from the ABC because she happened to be Lebanese, and she just did what journalists do on social media and posted a link to factual information. And she ended up getting an enormous payout after a court case because they were wrong. And they were also pressured by pro-Israeli lobbyists who were very wealthy people and knew the people who were running the ABC at the top level. There was a big thing about it. And since then, they've got their ducks lined up. But bowing to political pressure with a national public broadcaster is dangerous. Let's see. John Backer says, in North County, San Diego, we get about 40 channels with an antenna. Almost half of them are Spanish. Well, you're really close to Mexico there. And I've been to San Diego. Love San Diego. Lovely place. Went across the border with my friend Cheryl. Yeah, it's a really interesting part of the world. Border towns are always fascinating. Dick says, as Grandpa says in The Lost Boys, if you read the TV guide, you don't need to watch the TV. Yeah, I can see that. J. Oldtrim says, I don't care for any version of Moby Dick other than Houston's. Yeah, the one with Patrick Stewart's a bit iffy. Rosie Chambara says, the only thing I like about the BBC now is the archives. They're redoing all the John le Carré radio plays. And also, the Adam Curtis stuff on the BBC is brilliant, but 99% is irrelevant. You got to pick and choose. You got to cherry pick the stuff on a national broadcaster. I think that some of the political coverage is very ropey here with the ABC, but it gets called out and there are corrections that are done. I think they're doing an adjustment away from conservative politics. Franny says, haven't watched terrestrial TV news. Fair enough. And Franny says, the BBC news section is a rotating door with Downing Street conservatives. There's your problem. But let's see. Watched a few movies recently, says Ramzar. Mostly Apple TV Plus, PBS, Masterpiece, and HBO Max. Once done, I'll turn towards a dozen Japanese movies from the 50s. Yeah, it's reasonable. Carol says, I just watched Strictly Come Dancing, that's in the BBC. Only for the dancing and costumes. My dance teacher hates it as they don't do it correctly. No, they're just doing it for the... I hate competitive stuff. I hate entertainments where they turn everything into a competition. They turn cooking into a competition. They turn dancing into a competition. They turn sitting around on a couch into a competition. Tom says, what's my opinion of Ballerina starring Anna de Armas? It's in my next video because I'm going over the movies I saw in July and I've got an opinion there about it. Not great. Doug says, I just rewatched Shot in the Dark. Inspector Clouseau is the best Pink Panther movie. It's not a Pink Panther film. A hidden gem. Yeah, it's got some good actors in it too. I think one of the things with the Pink Panther movies is Sellers got very self-indulgent, which he had a tendency to do. My opinion of Peter Sellers is he was better as a character actor than he ever was as a comedian. There are a whole bunch of things he did, particularly late 50s, and also things like Being There, where he shows his character actor chops. But the comedy stuff, there's that brown face shit he did in The Party. It just doesn't hit for me. Australian cooking shows are the equivalent of your brain being boiled in oil. If you want decent cooking shows, you've got to go to YouTube, where people just do the cooking. There's no product placement. There's no bullshit. There are any number of great cooking shows on YouTube where people just do the cooking for the love of cooking. Yeah, there are other big ones like Google Eats and things like that, but they tend to be stunts. Whereas I like a good, decent cooking show where they show you simple recipes. There are some really good Korean ones. Aaron and Claire do a fantastic Korean cooking channel showing you simple recipes you can make. But I would never go to TV for a cooking show these days. Um, Gerald Trump says, now, whenever I watch this Once Upon a Time in America, I kind of think about De Niro despising Trump and James Wood's support of him. Unfortunately, it colours the film. Well, I think despising Trump puts you on the right side of history. Carol says, competition can be healthy or not. I guess I'm competitive with myself to improve how I dance. I take medals to be assessed, but we all support each other. I think you've got to support each other. It's like YouTube. There are people who are competitive on YouTube with movie channels and other things, but I'll be cooperative. And that's why I tell people to go and look at Boomer Doug's channels. But I don't thrive with competition. I thrive with encouraging other people and being encouraged, and everybody trying to do what they do better than they do it. That for me is my comfort zone. That for me is the way humanity should be. There's all this, survival of the fittest bullshit, which people misinterpret as evolution. The creatures and the environments and the organizations and the individuals who thrive are people who cooperate. Cooperation and community move humanity forward much more than competition ever did. It's bullshit that competition's important. Not your stuff, Carol, but as a cultural meme. Yep, Peter, YouTube cooking is great. Tasting history of Max Miller's your favorite. Yeah, Max is good. Max does his research. Friday says, I love Peter Sellers and Mariah Jack comedy with social commentary. Yeah, I agree. That stuff hits, Friday, absolutely. Tom Stein says, Dean Cain is now an ICE agent. What do you think of that? I think he's the worst Superman. He's bizarro Superman. I think somebody whose inability to understand compassion and understand that he is famous because he played a refugee. I think that lack of self-knowledge and that lack of fellowship with other people means that he is a prick and he deserves nothing but our scorn. And there's a reason why he doesn't do movies as much and has had a shit career as an actor. The nature of a person reflects in the work they do. Friday says, Darwin never said survival of the fittest. Absolutely. And there's some interesting things people have found out too. When everybody was touting that survival of the fittest thing, there was a thing which was officially called the sneaky fucker syndrome, which means, particularly like elks and things like that, when the two alpha elks are bashing their heads together to find out who gets the women, sneaky little boy elks would slip up behind the females and just slip them a length while the other two are competing. And people who study animals found out there's a thing called the sneaky fucker syndrome. And the sneaky fuckers had at least as much hereditary component to the group of animals as the ones who competed and bashed their heads together. Renaissance Chambara says, the perverse incentives in algorithms drive some of the worst YouTube creative behavior. I agree. People like Mr. Beast. Jimmy Donaldson is everything that's wrong with YouTube. And yes, it does get enormous views, and yes, it has made him immensely wealthy. But there's a dishonesty to what he does, and a corporatization and a privileged viewpoint to what he does that I find very repugnant. Dick says, I found your advice and support a great help in doing stuff on YouTube. Absolutely, Dick. It's we're all in this together. I mean, people can watch your stuff, people can watch my stuff. My theory, and I've developed this over the last 10 years, is there's no use knowing stuff unless you share it. I mean, some people know things and then they sell it, which is, that's up to them. But for me, having knowledge and sharing knowledge are complementary to each other. There's no use having secret knowledge where I know how to do this and you don't. I know how to do this. Here's how you do it. Is much better. It's much healthier. It's much better for the sanity of everybody to be cooperative rather than competitive. I think competitive brings out the worst in people. Cooperation brings out the best in them. Carol says, I love that brain over brawn. Yeah, absolutely. To be honest with you, in my checkered past, I may well have been that kind of an animal. Ramsar said there was a good biographical movie about Julia Child, Julie and Julia. She was one of a kind, very bright. She worked for the OSS during World War II. Yeah. Some people have a secret past, and it's kind of interesting that they do. One of the things I really like in movies, particularly mid-century movies from all sorts of places, is the lived experience that works toward an actor's art. There are any number of actors and actresses who did a lot of shit during World War II. And I'm not just talking about the soldiers. I mean, Noel Coward spent a year traveling around various islands in the Pacific entertaining troops. Americans, Australians, British people. He did a lot of work entertaining frontline troops, along with Marlene Dietrich. Both of them spent a lot of time in some very arduous circumstances and very dangerous circumstances to keep morale up for the soldiers. And I really admire that. I really admire the fact that they were willing to put themselves out there and put their careers on hold to a certain extent to be a part of the fight without actually picking up a gun. And Noel Coward had a great career in Las Vegas in the 1950s because people remembered him when they were soldiers in the Pacific, and him and Marlene Dietrich and a few other people came out to entertain them and to keep their morale up and to, nurse them through the trauma of war. And so it paid off for him enormously, but it wasn't the intent. Vanessa Chambara says the best films survive when there are latent demand the companies then provide. I prefer to see the Mattei affair survive longer than Marvel's Endgame. I think we got room for both of them. I like the Marvel movies, but I do realize there are more important films in the vaults that really need to be released. Renasis Chambara says knowledge sharing drives the latent demand. Yeah. Carol says there was a thought here in the UK to ban competitive games for kids. Sadly, a nice idea, but failed to teach generations. Sometimes you lose, but get back up and try again. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that failure isn't necessarily about competition. There are times when I think I've failed in a video, and it happens more often than I let on. And I learn from the failure because I've trained myself to learn from it. But I think here's the problem. If you have competition for kids, there are sociopaths at every age. There are the people who thrive on pushing other people down. And I saw it when I was a kid. I've seen it as an adult. The worst people sit at the top of society a lot of the time. And we know when it happens. We know when our nations are being led by the worst people. And I'm not specifically talking about Trump. Happened here in Australia with Scott Morrison. And the thing you've got to try to do if you are, teaching kids that sometimes you lose and you've got to pick yourself up and things like that, is giving energy to the wrong people during that process. UK film nerds of a certain age owe a huge step to Alex Cox movie drone intros on BBC the early mid-90s. Yeah, I mean, we had that too with a lot of people. There were people like Bill Collins and Ivan Hutchinson and John Hind and a whole bunch of other people who were teaching us about cinema just before the movies. I really love that value added that used to be a part of watching a movie. Franny says, on sharing my favorite quote is, to get the full value of joy, you must have someone to divide it with, by Mark Twain. Yeah, absolutely. Sharing the passion and sharing the love and sharing everything. You don't have to overshare, but you know what I mean. Is great. It's heartwarming. I mean, when I had breakfast with my friend Julia yesterday, we shared lots and lots of very deep things about our lives, which we don't do with everybody. And just sharing, me being worried about Sal while she's in the hospital and all that, and Julia being worried about the health issues she has, it lifts the burden. And also, we had great food and great coffee. Peter says Carol Lombard lost her life in a plane crash while on tour entertaining troops in World War II. Yeah. There was a threat when people go to do that, but I really admire the people who did. Not so much the people who went and entertained the troops during Vietnam, because Australia and America should never have been in Vietnam. That one um, leaned towards supporting an egregious national political policy. Carol says, absolutely. I always wonder why such awful people end up in charge or in positions of power, because they push it. They're good at threatening. They're good at finding the weaknesses. They're good at squirming their way up like the blob. Ramsar says, stunningly beautiful and super intelligent Hedy Lamarr invented a radio communication device for Allied torpedoes that was a precursor to cell communications. Absolutely. Yeah, Tom Glenn Miller too. He died in, I think, the English Channel, going from one gig to another. Yeah, I mean, 1930s entertainers are fantastic. I mean, Leslie Hutchinson, Hutch, was a man of colour who was a cabaret piano player and singer in London. And society loved him. The top end of society loved him until he started stooping socialite women and socialite men, and his career tanked because of that. He was mentioned in divorce proceedings when there wasn't no fault divorce. But Hutch is great. I listen to it. He's on my playlists. Hutch was just such a cool singer. Peter says Bill Collins' DVD collection is being sold on eBay. Didn't manage to get any, but I remember Bill's shows fondly from the 80s. Yeah, Bill started in Sydney in the 60s. I was watching him do intros to movies in the 60s, and it was always great fun. He was knowledgeable and also kind of gentle in his movie reviews. And then, of course, there's David and Margaret. David Stratton and Margaret Pomerantz double teamed movie TV shows about movies for a long time, and were very instrumental in reducing censorship classifications in Australia. They're still around. David's quite elderly now, and so is Margaret to a certain extent. But they really had an effect on the way Australians see cinema. D. Lee says Hedy Lamarr co-invented channel swapping, which is the basis of modern telecommunications, and that was worth billions. Yeah, and I love Hedy Lamarr. I first saw her in Samson and Delilah, and I thought, yeah, I can understand why Victor Mature was attracted to her, and why did he go for that other wimpy chick? Dick says, yeah, the movie drone sessions of film are brilliant. Lots of hidden gems during the run of the film. They showed on BBC Two on Sunday nights. Some YouTube channels have edited the Alex Cox intros together. Cool. Doug says, Bill Collins' enthusiasm for film was so contagious and rewarding. Yeah. We learn from people who share. And I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot from friends as well. I mean, I'll have arguments with my friend Grant Watson about movies, but we always respect each other's opinions. He's fond of Ridley Scott films, and I don't like them. But we will argue about that in a friendly, collegiate way. Got to catch up with him too, come to think of it. But yeah, I mean, there's a good movie critic community here in Melbourne. There's Julian over at Collector Creations. There's John Harrison. There's Nadine Whitney. We're really lucky here to have so many people who know cinema at a deep level, and you can just go and see them at a Cinemaniacs session and have a chat with them in the coffee bar. It's really fantastic. Ramsay said early Hedy Lamarr was in Czechoslovakia when she acted in a controversial erotic drama Ecstasy in 1933. Yeah, which was the first movie of any consequence that showed female orgasm, which is good because guys tend to get them a lot easier. Vanessa Chambara says, I love the punk ethos of Aussie cinema when I was young, like Razorback and Mad Max. What should I keep my eye out on? What I suggest is go to Umbrella's website, shop.umbrellaent.com.au, and you'll find some cheaper things on DVD particularly, which are like $5 to $10 on their website. And there are a lot of good Australian things there. And at that kind of price, even with postage, I think you're going to find some real bargains. J.L. Trump says, sometime in the late 70s, I happened to catch Ecstasy about 4 a.m. I was amazed. Dealey says, it's a shame Hedy Lamarr horrifically disfigured herself with cosmetic surgery in the later years. Then who didn't? Carol says, my manager has a very different political view to me, but we have great conversations as we respect each other's opinions. Oddly, we have different ways to do it, but the main ideas are the same. Yeah. That's the problem I have with conservative people who are really fond of conservative politics. They tend to be wealthier people, and they tend to be dismissive of people who haven't been as fortunate as they are. Usually it's fortunate in choosing your parents or the circumstances you're in. And there are people of wealth who are conservative, who really think they work harder than everybody else, which is utter bullshit. It's purely the luck of the draw. It's purely that they just happened to hit a niche and also they networked with other people who went to the same schools as them. It's not that they're working harder, it's that they've, fallen into a pit full of money. Let's see how we do it. We're an hour in already and my throat's not sore yet. This is good. And the temperature has risen to 3 degrees centigrade, which is kind of weird. I want it to be warmer. It's going to be sunny today. It's going to get up to like 20 degrees. This time of year, we get from down near zero up to about 20 degrees centigrade all in one day if it's sunny. And it annoys me because I'm not from here. I'm a Sydney boy. I grew up in Sydney where it's subtropical. And yes, it gets cold in winter, but it gets warmer faster. And even though I've been in Melbourne for half of my life, I've just never adapted to the fact that Melbourne's got a fucked up climate. Whoa. So any questions? 86 degrees where Tom is, nice and hot. 86 degrees is comfortable. 95 is hot. And I love it. I love it when it's warm. And also I'm on blood thinners now. And blood thinners make you feel the cold more. So Melbourne winters are hitting me a little harder than they used to. I wish I had a barista. Racist Jambara says, people often mistake good fortune and circumstance for their own talent. Sydney is still quite chilly. Weather could be worse. Could be in London during winter. I was in London in springtime. It was still pretty shitty then. The Guard 411 says, Hedy Lamarr patented in 1947 the foundation of modern secure transmission. Yeah. Very intelligent woman. I did have some notes. I did scribble some notes in a hurry this morning. Let's see if there's anything in my notes. Has anybody seen the Ice Cube War of the Worlds movie? Because I'm hearing a lot of really bad things about it. And it's on streaming services. And there are people saying it's the worst movie ever made or it's the worst movie of the year. And I haven't seen it yet. And I'm not inclined to either. I can't really criticize it because I haven't seen it, but I'm hearing some egregiously what the fuck things about it. Racist Chambara said, I found a combination of warfare and having lived in Hong Kong for a few years made me sensitive to cold. Yeah, I can see that. Air quotes comedian. I've seen clips that look awful. Yeah, I'm hearing things. I have seen a few clips from that War of the Worlds movie. And of course, it is in public domain now. A lot of, well, in fact, all of H.G. Wells' stuff pretty much is in public domain or will soon be in public domain. And that then allows people to make Invisible Man movies and the Time Machine movies, whatever they like. Friday says London is warmer so much that a couple of degrees centigrade higher for it to count as a heat wave than elsewhere in the country. Well, it is further south too. But I think the problem is one of the problems we have here when it's cold. They have the reverse problem in England, in that the houses are built to keep things warm in winter, but they're not built to cool things in summer. Doug says War of the Worlds is so bad. Time Traveler says until Disney changes the copyright laws again, they've had a block on that. I don't know what's going to happen with Trump because nobody knows what's going to happen with Trump. But at the moment, copyright laws aren't in his sights. Earthquake Comedian says, approve the Jeff Wayne version. Yeah, it's a good musical version. Kane says, Ice Kid been in good films since Boys in the Hood. I don't know. I think he's been in some okay films. But, he's making bank. And it feels like that movie may have been made during the lockdowns. And they've only just released it now because they thought we might as well release it. And even if people think it's the worst movie ever made, we're still going to get some eyes. We're still going to get revenue from it. Roger Morgan says, George Pal's War of the Worlds will always be the best version. Yeah, I didn't like the Spielberg version. Partly because of Tom Cruise, but I think the Spielberg version isn't Spielberg at his best, which is still, I'm not that keen on Steven Spielberg, just like I'm not keen on Ridley Scott. Carol says, can recommend solo films on Windows in the UK, keeps the house cooler, plus it stops your stuff from fading. That's good. Evil Pixie 96 said, walk 30 kilometers a day and can't stay awake. Good night. Good night, Evil Pixie. Look after yourself. Stay hydrated after a 30-kilometer walk. I only did 10, but I was up and down hills. But yeah, I definitely feel the pain. Gotta love Awesome World's radio version, says Kevin. Yeah, I like it. There's also a couple of movies about the making of that War of the Worlds, which are kind of interesting. Rosa Shambara says, Friday's a great movie by Ice Cube. Weirdly enough, War of the Worlds was released after Skype closed down and yet uses the Skype interface. So much issues with War of the Worlds. Yeah, it would be because I believe it was made around 2021. What I think is Sacha Baron Cohen in the Borat movies, I think once you get the joke doesn't need to be prolonged. Yeah, it's. I understand what he did, and I understand the points he was making, but don't know that they've aged particularly well. Hi, Cinema Dave. Hope you're doing good too. Hope you and Jesse are doing good. Nice warm weather where you are, mate. Kayan says, always mix up War of the Worlds with Day of the Triffids. Yeah, Day of the Triffids is a botanical one. That's the only thing you need to remember. Carol says, Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds gave me nightmares for years. Yeah, I can see that. It's really good. I've got it on CD. Friday says, love War of the Worlds. George Pal's version ships in Robinson Crusoe on Mars. Yeah, Robinson Crusoe on Mars is good. I enjoyed that one as well. Really need to find a physical media copy of that. Cinema Dave says, super hot here these days, but cooler weather on the way. It's inevitable, Dave. Yeah, I could really use some heat at the moment. Just like a week of super tropical weather would suit me well. I really liked it, even though I complained about it on the video, when I went into the butterfly house at Melbourne Zoo yesterday. And it was like 32 degrees and humid inside the butterfly house. And I thought, I could really use this permanently. Time Traveler said, I like the Triffid books by Wyndham. We read them in school. Yeah, I read them in school too. And we liked them there too. Though my school was so poor, we didn't all have copies of the books and we had to share them around. and my sharing person was a slow reader, so it took me a long time to get the book. Racist Jambara says, Day of the Triffids is great when you see the early 70s TV adaptation, very dark. Yeah, I don't mind the one with Howard Keel either. I think they did a lot with a little in that movie. Air quotes comedian said, whenever I hear the words, no one would have believed, I automatically settle in for a great ride. Burton's voice. Yeah. Time Traveler says, hot chocolate soup, cheese on toast, more hot chocolate. Sounds like a plan. Haven't decided what I'm having for lunch yet, but I might have mushroom soup. And I'll nick down to the bakery and get a really crusty sourdough roll. I think that's on the cards for today. D. Lee says the tripods which made in a BBC TV series is very War of the Worlds. I hear good things about it, but I'm having trouble finding a copy of that. Carol says it's been fairly hot summer here this year. Seem to have a lot of butterflies about. Okay, cool. There's an upside. Roger said BBC did a pretty good series of Day of the Triffids, stuck more to the book than the film. Yeah. Again, Franny agrees with you. What's the best movie I've seen lately, Dave? Says. Let me just bring up my. Oh no, I don't even have to look it up. For the first time this month, because I'm doing Art House August, I watched Michelangelo Antonioni's La Ventura, and it blew me away and rewired my brain for cinema, where I don't need loose ends tied up. And it's such a different movie, and it has a different cinematic language to it than movies I've seen. And I love La Ventura with Gabriella Fazzetti and Monica Vitti. Just the landscape is so integral to the movie, and the places the couple go when they're looking for their friend who's disappeared on the island. It's just a mind-blowing movie, and I know a lot of people don't like it, but I've got the ability to slip into the world of a movie now, and that one really hit for me. Vanessa Chambara says, is Darwin that much different temperature-wise to the rest of Australia? We shared books when I was at school, made you cognizant of it. Yeah, Darwin's very different. Darwin's got 2 seasons, we've got 4. Darwin has wet and dry. And I've been to Darwin a few times, and I did radio for ABC Radio Darwin for 13 years. Darwin is wonderful. It's one of my favorite cities anywhere. It's got its own culture. It's got very tight ties to Asia because it is close. It's easier to get to Bali than it is to get to anywhere else in Australia from Darwin. And in fact, once upon a time in the 1970s, a couple of guys got an aluminium skiff and loaded it up with fuel for the outboard motor and went from Darwin all the way to Indonesia because the water was calm those days. Took them about 2 or 3 days, but they actually made it to Indonesia in a little tin boat, a little aluminium skiff. Lots of stories about Darwin. Ken Freeman's theme for Rocks Tripods. He worked on Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds too. Cool. Dave says, great film. I love Antonioni films. Yeah, Love Ventura is fantastic. Lisa saw the new Naked Gun on Friday. It has moments. There's a montage scene I thought was excellent, but otherwise just missed the mark. I'm seeing it on Thursday when it comes out here. Roger says, new film Weapons getting great word of mouth reviews. Yeah, I'm hearing things about that as well. It's out here. But this week's not a good week for me to see movies until Sal gets back. Really want someone to make a new 1950s Red Scare sci-fi film in that style. Rubber suits, high heels, staring eyes, and flying discs. There's lots of AI created movie montages on YouTube that have exactly that vibe. Good night, Renaissance Jambara. Thank you very much. Thanks for being part of the live stream. Get some sleep. Let's see. There is a trailer for a movie. Ben Wheatley's got a new film called Bulk, B-U-L-K. And when you finish the live stream, go and take a look at the trailer for that, because that's a really weird trailer. It's almost like somebody made an English version of Tetsuo the Iron Man. Really mad film. I just watched it before I started the live stream, and it's crazy. Okay, it says, I'm too Celtic for that really hot weather. I'll be walking around like a wet sponge all day. It's not me. Here's the trick, and I learnt this from a pharmacist in Darwin. If you're in hot and humid weather, like a tropical place, walk 20% slower, drink twice as much water, and your body adjusts in about 2 or 3 days. Yeah, you still got a slip, slop, slap sunscreen, but your body has the ability to adjust to that shit. It's just a matter of you changing habits just that little bit. The AI fake trailers gave me the idea for new cheesy science fiction films as time travel. Yeah. Carol says, I saw Margot Robbie supposed to be connected to a remake of The Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Yeah. I mean, it might be fun. I don't know if it's necessary, but it might be fun. Lee says, time travel. Yeah, some of those AI trailers are getting pretty good now. They are. There's some magnificent work being done there. People have problems with AI, mostly in the training of it using copyright material. But I see potential as well as threat to what that stuff's happening, to the stuff that's happening. My mouth's going weird. No, it's not a stroke. But yeah, we live in weird times. Have I got anything else on my notes? Not a lot, but I'm definitely going to see Naked Gun this week. By the way, Super Chats are still available because we've got the fart gun ready to go. And it is a sunny day outside. The sun's risen. I can see it through the slats of the blinds. And yep, going to be a good sunny day. What I'm going to do today, I've got to go visit Sal. Then visiting time's 2 p.m. But I'll talk to her before then. But I might try to hit a couple of op shops, see if I can find some movies. Roger says, 80s film Space Invaders, great tribute to 50s science fiction. Yeah, it is. It's a bit of fun, and the aliens in that look really, really manky. Oh, so many good films, so little time. I've got my list here. I've got a list of the things I want to do for the Art House August. And it may be here or it may be in the other room, and I'm not going to get up and go and take a look at it. I've actually got myself organized. I've got a book now where I put all the things I'm going to do. So it may be in this book or it may be in another. And being organized is not something I do as a natural part of who I am. But I'm trying to be a little more organized than I was. Okay, so I've seen 6 movies this month so far in Art House August. And that means that I'm 5 days behind. Hi, Anthony. Good morning. I recently saw Brothers starring Beat Takeshi. Am I a fan of his work? Yeah, of course. Takeshi rocks. I mean, there's Hannah B, there's Butterflies. All of his movies rock. And in Battle Royale, him as a school teacher in Battle Royale. Fantastic actor. Started out as a part of a comedy duo, by the way, in Japan. And then stretched out to do all of these Yakuza movies. Okay, so I think there's a new generation gap on the way. Those who will accept AI-generated music and art, etc., as a legitimate thing, and those who won't. I think there's still a qualitative difference between AI-generated stuff, which doesn't have originality to it. It's feeding back things that it mixes up together. Large language models, large image models, things like that. I think there's always going to be a premium to human created. And it may become less prominent than it is. And there will be AI movies. Inevitably, there'll be AI movies because the suits will want them. Whether they're successful or not, who knows? But I think they'll become more successful as time and the elaborations of that technology move on. But there's always going to be a premium on human-created material because life experience can't be put into an algorithm, at least in the foreseeable future. Dick says, great to see Terry Opshot Hall. Always interesting to see what you find. I wish I could find more interesting stuff. You guys have an enormity of riches where you are. Lee says, so most AI-generated music sounds terrible, tinny, not great. Strangely enough, it does seem to be able to generate 50s doo-wop well for some reason. I'll use a little bit of it in the background of my videos because I can't get copyright music without paying a lot of money for it. But it's always underlying, and I try to keep it in the mood of what the video is about. So I do use it a little bit, but I don't use it in the foreground. I just use it as music in the background. And it seems to work for me at that level. D. Lee says, Battle Royale was Hunger Games for Hunger Games, but better. Yeah, I've got the 4K of Kinji Fukasaku's Battle Royale, and I should rewatch it. That counts as art house, so I can rewatch it this month if I want to. But yeah, Battle Royale is just so strong and so nasty and so full on. I really love it. And yeah, I mean, the 4K collection is coming along gradually. There's lots of little bits and pieces that I pick up fairly cheaply on 4K. And I kind of like having them. I like having them as crisp as that and watching them on TV. It's not necessarily essential that I do. But one of the things Sal said was she was in hospital was that she was going to buy me 2 movies of my choice while I'm looking after the house, just as a bit of a reward. I didn't ask her to. She just said that. And the 2 movies I've got is a vulgar pleasure of mine, The Saint with Val Kilmer. I like that movie. I'm picking it up on Blu-ray quite cheaply. And the other film I'm getting on 4K, I found a reasonably priced upgrade to The Umbrellas of Cherbourg on 4K. I've got a DVD copy of it, but suddenly the 4K came out, the Criterion edition came out at a reasonable price. And I'm getting that later this month. I'm going to put it into Art House August because it's one of my favorite films. That and The Young Girls of Rochefort. So I've got a Jacques Demy musical coming on 4K, and I'm really anticipating that one. Roger says, heard a Genesis album where Phil Collins' vocals were replaced by previous Genesis singer Peter Gabriel. So wrong, but strangely compelling as a what if. Okay, cool. Carol says, sadly, our fines are likely to drop now as charity stores are dropping films and books. That sucks. Thomas says, how large is my flat screen TV? 55 inch, but the lounge area is not large, so it's a good size. And it's 4K, and I've got a 4K player as well. I don't have a sound bar because the sound would annoy the shit out of Sal while she's doing something else. But I have reasonable sound on the TV I've got. Dean says, VHS to DVD, DVD to 4K. What's next for physical media? I think 4K is enough because 4K is at about the limit of human visual perception. We don't need to go more. Yes, there are 8K TVs, and they do look stunning. I've seen a couple of them. But beyond 4K, it may happen, but I really love the way 4K looks. It's as good as you're going to get because film stock is at a resolution around 4K. And so going beyond that, you're going to have to do AI interpolation and that kind of thing. And there's always a problem with that. And fucking around with that stuff is just going to make people hate the movie. Lee says, even Blu-rays is cheap in charity shops. I picked up 11 for 50p each. Cool. What's next? The holodeck like in Star Trek? Yeah, I don't think so because the holodeck has so many moral red flags as a technology. I think there's an episode of Strange New Worlds that's just dropped where they were using an early version of the holodeck. Haven't seen it yet, but I do want to watch it. Peter says, Art House. I'm not familiar with The Cook, the Thief, the Wife, and I Love It. Yeah, I got it. I've seen it. I got the Umbrella release of it on Blu-ray. Doug says, it's not the size, it's the quality. Yeah, I mean, 55 inches is perfectly fine for me. I mean, I've got a 30-inch TV here on the desk, and that's about enough for desk use. Lee says total immersion VR like better than life in Red Dwarf. Yeah, I mean that's a problem too. Is Blu-ray to 4K noticeable, Cam? It's noticeable, but it's not intrusively noticeable. It's definitely a difference, but I like either. And in fact, I can watch things on my 4K TV that are on DVD, and it's acceptable. There's a slight graininess to it, but it's not egregiously noticeable. Drink time. I keep having this fantasy that what I need is a bar fridge and a coffee maker in the man cave. But I'd never leave apart from to go into the toilet if I did that, so I'm not doing that. Ian says, would I consider the Doris Day film Glass Bottom bad science fiction because of all the inventions? I think it's stretching the term a lot. I mean, it's a bit of fun. It's a bit of fluff. Those later Doris Day movies where she's still pretending to be a 22-year-old virgin are a bit icky from that point of view. But yeah, it's an entertaining film. Just like Move Over Darling's an entertaining film, and Caprice is kind of entertaining. Roger said, been enjoying the 4K releases of Hammer's Quatermass 1 and 2. Roll on the Quatermass and the Pit 4K box set. Yeah, I couldn't afford those, unfortunately, which is a pity. But I've got the other versions of them. Quatermass and the Pit I've got on Blu-ray because Australia released a Blu-ray 10 years ago. Friday says, is it wrong that I want a 4K version of the Green Slime? It packs the main plot of Armageddon into the first 15 minutes. No, it's okay. I don't want that. Tokusatsu movies are fun anyway. And if they can do it in 4K, why the hell not? What's the most I would pay for a coffee machine? If I had the money, I'd pay unlimited funds. But the one I've got cost me about $500, but it's got a grinder built into it. I did pay for a bottomless portafilter, which drains the coffee a lot better. But my $500 one does a perfectly good job. Anthony Deagle says, I agree with you about Val Kilmer's Saint movie. Very underrated and a shame he didn't play the role again. Yeah, it's a romantic film too. It is a love story as much as it's a spy film, action film. Doug says, my boomer eyes don't really appreciate 4K as I should. Blu-ray's fine. Key moments in my life, color TV, video to DVD, and widescreen TV. Yeah, I can see that, Doug. It's, for me, I don't mind 4K. My eyes are fine. But I think being a size queen about this stuff. And the other thing I don't understand is steelbooks. Why do you have to have bulletproof physical media? It's steelbooks are a fetish I don't really appreciate. I've got some because that was a version of certain movies that I've got. I mean, I've got a steelbook 4K of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever because I wanted a 4K of it, and that was the only one available. But the important thing, you've always got to come back to it, and it's a bit problematic that some people focus on the presentation. Yes, I do get collector's editions of movies from Imprint and Umbrella, and I like the extras. I love the essays in them and all that kind of thing, and the lobby cards. I like all that stuff. But ultimately, when I'm reviewing them, I've got to remind myself and come back to the movie is the thing. The thing up on the screen, the narrative thing up on the screen is what matters. And that's where it comes back to. So even when I'm reviewing a fantastically curated collector's edition box set of something, like the Caligula box set with 5 or 6 different versions of the movie and all of the extras, I love that. But it comes back to the movie. And the delivery system is less important to me than the film itself. Friday says, did I see the recent James Hoffman video where he bought David Lynch's coffee machine? I've got it on my queue, but I haven't seen it yet. But I love James Hoffman's passion for coffee. Yeah. Pink Apocalypse says nothing matters but the movie based. Yeah, movie is the thing, and you can get wound up with all the ancillary stuff, which is seductive as hell. There are some incredibly good essays in those collector's editions, but it comes back to the movie. Roger says, just watch Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13. Proof you have a good idea. No matter how simple, you don't need millions of dollars of FX to make it. It's also useful if you're remaking Rio Bravo, which Assault on Precinct 13 is a remake of Rio Bravo, and Carpenter's admitted it. And it doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It just means it's got really, really good structure. D. Lee says, a rotten film in a nice metal box is still a rotten film. Yeah, I mean, I still go back to William Goldman's 3 movies types. The movies that were meant to be good and succeed, the movies that were meant to be good and fail, and the movies that weren't meant to be good at all. They were just there to make money. If you use those criteria, you can really evaluate and review movies a lot better. And William Goldman, having been in the industry for a long time, knew what he was talking about. Got half an hour to go, so any questions again? I'm always up for an AMA. And we're hitting that part of the live stream where my throat needs lubrication. Got a reference book from the deep distant past on my desk that I'm using to find things for the channel. And I find reference books as just so useful. John Stanley's Revenge of the Creature Features movie guide. I'm going through that and finding movies I didn't know anything about, which is kind of cool. KN says, I love Hammer and I've watched loads of those unboxing videos, but to be honest, I think they're a bit of overkill for me. I don't think these films really warrant such a treatment. It depends on people, what people like. I mean, let people like what they like, I suppose. Pink Apocalypse says, has anyone heard of the Italian movie Hearts and Armor? I've heard of it, but I don't recall anything about it, Pink Apocalypse. Tom says, what kind of animals can we expect to see when you visit the zoo? Platypuses. I went to the platypus expo thing. Seals. I did see some seals that were very photogenic. We did butterflies. We did orangutans, some gibbons. Though I didn't get any good footage then because the crowds were just too rammed for me to do that. So there are a few animals in there, but not as many as I would have liked had I been able to stroll around without a million people around me. Dick says, cool looking book. Yeah, it is good. I mean, this is like old school. This predates the internet. And it's got, I won't do that page, but it's got pictures in it as well and brief précis about it. It's useful. And I'm diving into those, particularly for science fiction, so that I want to keep it fresh and find things that are kind of cool but lesser known. So using reference books really works. Anthony Diggle says, a shame that a lot of studios seem to be gatekeeping classic 4K movies and steelbook. Taxi Driver and Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. If it doesn't cost me more, I don't mind a steelbook. But it's not something I fetishize in my collection. Brian says, fruit bats are cool. Yeah, they're all over the place, particularly around the Botanical Gardens in Melbourne. There are a lot of fruit bats. And Botanical Gardens, no, not Botanical Gardens, Centennial Park in Sydney's got a lot of them as well. Dean says, given that Dwayne Johnson is a punk and fading, do you think Liam Neeson and Jason Statham are following the same trajectory? Liam Neeson's doing a revamp with the Naked Gun thing, and I think that's a good thing to do. Statham's interesting because Statham has never made a movie that didn't get a theatrical release. I think Statham is kind of wise with his career. He knows the stuff he does well. He can do comedy as well, which he has shown he can do. But he definitely knows his genre and his limitations and his strengths as a star and an actor. The platypus was originally known as a duck beaver. No, it had a whole bunch of indigenous names before that. Steelbook or not, I love my day the earth stood still. Gort never looked more formidable than on Steelbook. Yeah, I mean, it depends. Where I'm going to review Curse of the Queer Wolf, Friday says. Probably when I can find a copy of it. Curse of the Queer Wolf I've heard about. And it sounds like a lot of fun. Doug says, controversial. I prefer El Dorado to Rio Bravo. I like Robert Mitchum, James Caan more than Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson. I think Rio Bravo for me, partly because of the ensemble, but I think it's structured really well. The villains are set up fantastically. The geography of the town is perfect for what they do. That long one street with the bar over on the right hand side and the other bar, the nasty bar over on the left, and the stables and the and the jail right at the end of the cul-de-sac. Love the way Rio Bravo is physically structured and blocked. Dean Johnson says John Wayne films wash, rinse, repeat. There are exceptions. I mean, The Searchers is just such a dark, fascinating film that uses landscapes enormously well. Brian says Ed Lee is not very PC, so warning for that. But if viewed with good humour, it's fantastic and funny. That's about Curse of the Queer Wolf. I'll see if I can find a copy of it, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I do like Rio Bravo, just like I like Gunfight at the OK Corral. The action blocking in those films is perfect, and I really appreciate it. In the same way that Seven Samurai is, and Magnificent Seven, action cinematography. I mean, all the groundwork was done in the 50s. Dick says, trouble with steelbooks is that they can look nice until they get scratched and dented, which happens quite easily. Yeah, absolutely. There is a collector community of steelbooks where all they care about is the fact that it's a steelbook and it's not about the movies. And I find that a little bit irksome. Kevin Brown says, High Noon, so damn good. Rio Bravo was a reaction to High Noon because in High Noon, the sheriff is so not confident in his abilities. He tries to get shopkeepers and people like that to help him with dedicated stone killers. It's an odd film from that point of view. Lee says, to gauge the humour level, one of the characters is named Richard Cheese, but everyone calls him Dick. Richard Cheese is a good, he does a humorous swing band. There's a guy called Richard Cheese who does that. High Noon, Outland, same film. Yeah, of course it is. Outland is just High Noon in space. And the science in it is pretty shit. Carol says, I hated Westerns for years and found them boring. As I got older, I watched good ones and they grew on me. It's like anything else. If you find the good stuff, you appreciate it regardless of genre. And I like a lot of Westerns. The renowned movies with Randolph Scott that Bud Bedicker did are just like essence of Western condensed into fairly short movies on a low budget, but fuck, they're good. My Darling Clementine's my favourite Western. What's my opinion? I like it, but I don't love it. I think it's a good, solid Western. Boomer Doug says, my favourite Western is Support Your Local Sheriff, The Jail with No Bars classic. Yeah, James Garner was so good at that self-depreciating humour. Dick says, a DVD release of Thunderbolt and Lightfall from Warner Brothers. I've got a Blu-ray. Pink Apocalypse says, I still adore They Call Me Trinity and Trinity is Still My Name. We watched those at the cinema back in the day, the Terence Hill, Bud Spencer movies. Very broad comedy. Our Western genre is dead. Thinking Kevin Costner's latest flop. Kevin Costner, I find his stuff problematic because it's mythologizing white colonialism. And yes, he did Dances with Wolves, but he wasn't the engine of that movie. But he's kind of deifying white privilege in those things, and I just don't find that comfortable. Kane says, I have to admit I never bought a steelbook. I guess they're more expensive than standard releases. They can be, but you can find bargains. Kevin Brown says, the original Stagecoach still holds up. Well, yeah, because of the ensemble. The cast and the characters just land in Stagecoach and all the different people with their different agendas. That kind of film works because of the writing and the acting. And I think that that's something that a lot of action films lose. Die Hard works because of John McClane and Holly and Hans Gruber. Strong characters, and you know where each one of them stands at every moment. Art House Western Combat El Topo. I'm doing Holy Mountain, I think, for Art House August. Though don't hold me to that. But Holy Mountain is on the list. Those Randolph Scott movies, says Tom. 50s movies are great. I think there are 5 or 6 in the series. I've got the 6. There was a 7th one, which kind of sorta is part of it, but it doesn't really land well. Carol says the shooters are good, the bad, and the ugly. I can't think of others right now. Once Upon a Time in the West is good. Just so many to pick from. Bert Lancaster and Lawman, Tough SOB, says Roger. Yeah, absolutely. It's got Cherie North in it as well. I like Cherie North. Dean says, yeah, John Ford films and his colleagues in the day set the standard that's almost impossible to duplicate. I think you don't need to duplicate, but you can be inspired by. I think there's a possibility. I mean, I saw a thing called The Thicket, which is a low-budget Western with Peter Dinklage in it, which Umbrella released on Blu-ray. And that's a fucking good Western, but it's small budget. And it plays realistically. It's based on a Joe R. Lansdale novel. And Dinklage wanted to make it for a long time because it had a character of short stature who's a sharpshooter and a bounty hunter. And it is so good. High news about the House on American activities, including Red Scare, McCarthyism, and the Hollywood blacklist. Yeah, it is, but I don't know whether shoehorning it into a Western was the best delivery system for that message. I think things like A Face in the Crowd do that so much better. Hi, Deborah. Surprised to see Livestream this morning. Yeah, me too. But I didn't get my video edited in time, so it is what it is. How are things down there in Nipaluna? Pink Apocalypse says the last release of Unknown World is an amazing interview with the grandson of the director and their life and the run from McCarthyism. Yeah, there are so many good documentaries in particular about McCarthyism. Dean says, would I ever watch Rust, the troubled Alec Baldwin Western? I'm not going to go and reach out for it. There are so many other things that I'd rather watch than that. I'm not keen on the movie, but I love the pokes of the Western genre in Back to the Future 3. Yeah, I've got the Back to the Future trilogy. I picked up for $5 on DVD. But I'm kind of over 33-year-old actors playing teenagers. Anthony says, great to see the Keno Lobber release a volume of Hopalong Cassidy movies. Hopefully they'll sell enough to release further volumes. I watched them when I was a kid. They were on TV a lot. And I really liked Hopalong Cassidy back in the day. Doug says, love Ride the High Country. Perfect swan song for Randolph Scott and Joel McRae. It is. Deborah says, Nipaluna is beautiful as ever, but I'm bedridden with a flu. That's not good. Nipaluna, for those who don't know, is Hobart in Tasmania, where Deborah lives. And I like Hobart. Don't particularly like the weather, but I like Hobart. And I've got friends there. Friday says, if you don't like Westerns, try comedy Westerns like Cat Ballou, Cactus Jack, Lust in the Dust. You got to like Divine in a Western. Blazing Saddles as well. You buried the lead there, Friday. Blazing Saddles. Dealey says, Cliff Eastwood's High Plains Drifter was an alternative take on High Noon. Yeah, I kind of don't like Clint Eastwood these days. I mean, apart from his politics. I think he's a very limited actor. Yes, Unforgiven is brilliant, but so much of his stuff was staying in his lane. Carol says, my name is Nobody is very funny. Yeah, the Terence Hill Westerns were funny because they were insiders. What up-and-coming directors do you think are worth a look? Coralie Fargett, who did The Substance and Revenge. fantastic director. I like Ryan Coogler's stuff. He's not he's established. He's not up and coming. Gareth Edwards. If you want um, special effects based action films, Gareth Edwards does it better than anybody. If you haven't seen The Creator, you should. Doug says, "You remember Durango Kid? We love those movies with Charles Starrett. Yeah, they were on TV as well, Doug. A lot of Durango Kid movies, Smiley Burnett and all that kind of stuff. Cisco Kid was on too, with Duncan Ronaldo and Leo Carrillo. Pink Apocalypse says, Carol, the wooden boxing dummy scene makes me cry laughed every time. Yeah. Kansas, was the Trump biopic The Apprentice ever made available on Netflix? Wonder why they're giving a warning and not a platform it. I don't know. I saw it in the cinema. I know it's got a physical media release here in Australia, and it's a very good film. But I don't know what the status is with the streaming services. High Plains Drifter, otherworldly vibe to it. Yeah, there's that implication in there, Roger. Absolutely. But yeah, if you haven't seen The Apprentice, you should see it. It is an extremely good movie that explains a lot. And Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong are fantastic in it. What am I going to watch next? I might do something a bit different for Art House August. And I'll do Black Orpheus because I'm in the mood for a Black Orpheus kind of film. So I think that's going to be my next view. And it's a rewatch, of course, but yeah, I'm going to do that. Maybe I'll do the Young Girls of Rochefort as well. I'll do musicals for a little bit and cleanse the palate. But like I said, I've got other things to do today. I've got to visit Sal, and I'm going to do a little bit of an op shop haul in the op shops I haven't been to for a while. Oh, 8:42. So I've been an hour and 42 minutes so far. That's good. Hey, Deborah, is there snow on the mountain at the moment in Hobart and Nipaluna? Because there often is. I went up there in November. It's still bloody cold. If you don't know, there is Konyani, which is the mountain behind Hobart. It's this enormous monolithic mountain right behind Hobart in Tasmania. And it's about, 2,000 meters or, 1,000 meters or something. And it's an entirely different climate at the top of the mountain than there is at the bottom. Any cinema releases I'm looking forward to, says Dean. Let's see. I want to see Naked Gun, which is coming out this week. Nothing particularly striking that grabs me. I'm going to see what there is coming up, but I've been really focusing on this Art House August thing and a couple of other things I'm doing. But I'm open for new people telling new stories. I'm sick of the same people telling the same stories and franchises that have run their course but don't know it, and so they're still milking the cash cow. I'm interested to see that new Ben Wheatley movie, Bulk, which that trailer, you've got to see that trailer after we finish the live stream. It's insane. It is crazy. It's totally different than anything else I've seen. Ian says, plenty of movies about painters, musicians, architects, luthiers, carpenters, other artisanal adventures or incident characters, but never anything about cabinet makers. Maybe Jack Irish. No, I don't think it. I think with those movies, it's about the craftsmanship of the person rather than what their craft is. And Jack Irish is an interesting one. If you haven't seen the Jack Irish movies and episodes with Guy Pearce, you should check them out. Deborah says, brilliant sunshine on the mountain, no snow. Okay, cool. Got to get down there again at some stage. Have I ever seen the weird art house movie Begotten? No, should I? Okay, Carol. Okay, bed's calling. Hope your day goes well. And give Sally our best. I will, Carol. Absolutely. Get some sleep, get some rest, wake up and have a great day. Yeah, but I don't think cabinet makers innately are important to the narrative. It's about their craftsmanship and the care that people take into that. And whatever the movie's plot is informed by that character's attention to detail. Kevin says, looking forward to Spinal Tap this year and Project Hail Mary next year. I'll agree with that. I've read Project Hail Mary, and it's good, and it's made for movie adaptation. And I'm looking forward to the Spinal Tap sequel as well. Those guys, apart from the fact that they're all god tier improvisers, the fact that they're playing old Spinal Tap and there's people like Paul McCartney in there, it's going to be fun and it's going to be entertaining, and I want to see it because Spinal Tap is fantastic. Even though the music in Spinal Tap isn't to my taste, I really look forward to seeing the next thing. Hang on, I may have got a message. I'm back from Brekkie, and I'm going to, middle-aged geek girl sent me a message, and I'm live streaming. There we go. So, yep, I just let her know that I'm live streaming. So there is that, and she's up and about. Guilty Pleasure, I'm looking forward to Nobody 2, due out next week, I think, in Spinal Tap 2. Says Doug. Nobody was interesting. I enjoyed it. Roger says, will it go up to 12? It may go up to 12, but they may not recycle that joke. Deborah says, I'm doing a radio spot next weekend discussing alternative movie endings. What film do you think should have had a different ending? Let me think. What film should have had a different ending? That's a tough one. You put me on the spot, Deborah. Let me see. When's the next live chat? Next week, this time. Same bad time, same bad channel. Dean. Let me think. Alternative movie endings. Strictly boring. No, it's not strictly boring. But the Baz Luhrmann Elvis movie should have been It's All a Dream because it's not good. What else? Alternative endings. Roger Moore, different ending, 2001. Hey, Luna. Luna's up here. Out of shot. You want to come up here? Come on. Good girl. Here's Luna. Yay. We've got her here for the live stream. You going to stay? No, she just jumps up and then jumps down. Alternative movie endings. Let's see. The Bad and the Beautiful. I want to see the movie they were thinking of making, because the ending of The Bad and the Beautiful is all the people the producer fucked over leaning in to hear the story of the movie he wants to make with them, even though they hate his guts. Middle-aged geek girl's here. Yay! Golf clap. She's here. You just missed Luna, bub. But okay, good call. My immediate go-to is The Fifth Element. I detest the ending, and I would love to see Lulu ditch more. Yeah, there's a trope, Deborah, just to let you know, called Born Sexy Yesterday, where female characters that were just born or cloned or whatever and end up in a relationship with a male lead character, even though they're technically like babies. There's that trope as well. Friday says, I hope you're feeling better soon, middle-aged geek girl. Dear Lee says, I'm doing some film festivals later in the year. No idea what I'm seeing, but I'm sure I'll give it new ones to recommend to people. Yeah, the Melbourne International Film Festival is on at the moment, but I can't get to it. Capital A says, like Spinal Tap's early years, like give me some money. I laugh every time. Planet of the Apes ending kicked me in the guts when I first saw it. Yeah. Middle-aged geek girls listening from her room in the hospital, didn't know you were streaming. Neither did I until last night, really late after you'd gone to bed, and I didn't get my edit done. So I'm saving that video for Wednesday, and I'm doing a live stream. So, yep. And middle-aged geek girl saw Luna. Yay! You can see her again when you get out of hospital, and she will annoy you as she always does. Have I ever played in a rock or metal band, Spinal Tap was mandatory? If you've ever played in a rock or metal band, Spinal Tap was mandatory, says Cam. I haven't, because I don't have any musical talent at all. But yeah, I like Spinal Tap anyway, because the guys are just so hopeless and so unself-aware that I love it, and they don't understand their privilege. Itchy chest. But yeah, I mean, the Spinal Tap sequel looks like a lot of fun. Different ending, 2001: Space Odyssey. Yeah, I mean, I don't like the space baby ending where go through all this shit, go to the moon, go to Jupiter, turn into a space baby. That's pretty much the plot of 2001. I mean, here you go, Deborah. I've got an alternate ending for 2001 where the space baby comes to Earth and pisses on the planet. That would be funny. Friday says, Kane, this is truly watching his friend's band and experiences so much more. Tom says, I love the scene in Spinal Tap where they get lost backstage. Yeah, I mean, people are hapless. Also, like that Stonehenge is 18 inches tall. That works well. I think they're redoing Stonehenge for the sequel. Cleveland, yeah. Yeah, Spinal Tap is just such fun. But yeah, just so many movies, so little time. Let's do a random movie. I'm going to say Revenge of the Creature Features movie guide. I got that here. I like flipping pages and finding things. And there's always a movie on every page that I've seen. Horror Planet. I haven't seen that one. Stephanie Beacham. Horrors of the Black Museum. I've seen. For some reason, the horse's mouth is in there with Alec Guinness. And I've got to stop that because I'm on a live stream. Can't look at reference books while I'm on a live stream. Stonehenge with Elton John. Yeah. Yeah, their English accents in Spinal Taps are flawless. Yeah, absolutely. And Christopher Guest is actually an English nobleman for some reason. Deborah says, can't think I use the alternate ending for 2001 on the local radio, but it's a bloody good idea. You can use it if you phrase it right. The nice thing I found out doing radio is if you phrase things right, you can get away with all sorts of shit. Middle-aged Kiko says, the ex-hubby loves Spinal Tap, can't watch it now. Yes, you can. It's been a while. You can get over it now. It's really nice that you managed to get to the end of the live stream there, Bob. I appreciate that. And I'll give you a call after I finish the live stream. But yeah, different ending to Blade Runner. Oh, they already did that much better. Yeah, one of the things I find a bit weird is when they make a movie and then they do a test screening of it, and then they go back and reshoot a whole bunch of shit because the particular audience they picked didn't like the ending. Imagine if they did that with La Jetée. Weird that they do that. It's throw what you've got at the audience. If they can't handle it, they can't handle it. Captain Laser says, Repo Man, I'd like to see a new ending with seeing the aliens or the sausage. Nigel Tufnell is 90% Jeff Beck, says KM. Yeah, I can see that. Tom Stein says, John Stanley took the place of Bob Wilkins in the San Francisco TV show. Wilkins was the better host. Yeah. Wonder Sausage says, I'd like to see an analysis of the influence of Spinal Tap, like A, some scenes in The Last Waltz, etc. Different ending of One Ryan's, it catches the express. Wouldn't play the same. I mean, the whole point is the sacrifice made. But, I mean, any number of Westerns. War films ending differently. Yeah, I mean, I would like to see an alternative ending to Cabaret where they shoot all the Nazis in the audience. but that's just me. Yeah, that works. Cabaret, where the compere, played by Joel Grey, brings out a Thompson submachine gun and rat-a-tat-tats across the Nazi audience. That will work. Wanda says, how about a fan edit that meshes up Von Ryan's Express and the train? Nah, because one's in black and white, one's in colour. But the train, those action sequences were done in camera, and they look bloody fantastic. It's a good, solid Burt Lancaster movie. Different ending of Star Wars. The Death Star has a grill fitted. Thank you for Deborah. Yeah, the Cabaret alternative ending works. Different ending to Star Wars. Leia goes with Luke, and they never find out they're brother and sister. Middle-aged Hugo says, there's a patient here with a Southern Cross tattoo. I don't talk to them. I can understand that. Yeah, the train is an underrated one. Frankenheimer did a great job of that. I do like my ending to Star Wars. It's a bit like Lone Star, the John Sayles movie. Wonder Saucy says, there's a whole website that analyzes the ecological disaster on Endor caused by the destruction of the second Death Star. Cool. Middle-aged good girl said, I only mentioned it because you mentioned Nazis. Yep. Yeah, The Train is a great film. I've got it on Blu-ray, but I haven't rewatched it. Train, What Sacrifices for Art? Yeah. I really am going to have to watch that. Does it count as art house? I'll let you guys decide whether The Train's an art house movie or not. And then I can watch it this month if it is. You got 3 minutes. Let's see let's see if we can find other alternative endings. Alternative ending for Blazing Saddles, where Cleavon Little's character becomes a movie mogul. Middle-aged good girl says, anything can be art house if you want it to be. Yeah, but there's only a certain amount that I can stretch the concept. I've got to play fair to the audience. I can't fuck it around too much. One of the always found it interesting that Holy Grail and Blazing Saddles basically have the same ending. Holy Grail has the same ending because they ran out of money. That's why they ended it like that. Friday says, it's just like that most Star Wars fans don't recognize how hardcore Ewoks are. Yeah, they ate people. Honan, the sheriff buggers off and leaves the town to it. Yeah, I mean, they would have followed him. Alternative ending at Halloween, he stays dead. I can see that. Kevin Brown says, I still think Holy Grail so finally gets an ending. Yeah. Because it doesn't really have an ending. Let's see what else. What other movies? You do an alternative ending to The Substance, where she actually becomes a bigger star while being just a face sliming around the floor. That would work. Though I do love The Substance. I think it's the best movie that came out last year. Middle-aged Giga said, that would be for all horror movies. A bad dude stays dead. Yeah. And the thing is, they're not particularly, I mean, Halloween and Friday the 13th, the villains aren't nuanced at all. There's no texture to them. I don't think they knew how to end Holy Grail, even though they had the money, says Friday. Yeah, but not having the money made it worse. Read the ending of Jaws. Wouldn't a shark blood in the water have drawn more sharks? Yeah, but they probably weren't as dedicated as that one. D. Lee says, Ewoks are psycho teddies. The Ewoks were originally supposed to be Vietnam War allegory, so we could have had Brando in a fursuit. That's a fantasy I don't particularly want. Anyway, people, it's heading to the end of the live stream. So we really must knock that naughty clock that says it's time to go. It goes so fast. Our time has passed, and we must end our show. Thanks, Dick. Appreciate that. All the best to both me and Sally. Thanks for another fun live stream. It has been fun, and I enjoyed it, even though I had absolutely no real notes on this. So anyway, everybody look after yourselves. Take care. Behave to the extent you can get away with behaving, and I'll catch you later.